The news we've been wanting all year is finally here. The Penguins have re-signed Kris Letang to a 6-year deal worth $6.1 million per season, which pretty much means he's a Penguin for life. Let's just get straight to it. I love everything about this contract, and you should too, honestly. This whole process was very, very long, like pretty much all season from game one all the way till the contract was signed. That's usually how it is with these big time players entering their final year of the contract. Lots of talk, what's going to happen. And the whole year, essentially what I've heard coming out of Kris Letang's side is that he wanted a raise. Almost every couple months there was a new report, but each one always said that he wants that raise. He feels like he's taken a pay cut, which is very true. Over the last couple of years, he's been producing like one of the top defensemen over the last decade. And especially, you look at the top defensemen of today and what they get paid. Kris Letang was underpaid, and he was underpaid for a very long time. So playing at the top of his game that he was this year, for sure he deserved the raise. I would have been okay with giving him that raise as a Penguin to stay as a Penguin for life. I think Ron Hextall was always going to give him the raise. It's just the term they were going back and forth. I know Hextall was lowballing both Letang and Malkin with the years. They both want longer term contracts. Hextall wanted more of a 2-3 year type of thing, which is why I started getting scared, thinking the Penguins weren't going to re-sign these guys. They don't want to go longer term. And all year long, I was saying, and I'm sure many people were saying, screw this short-term thing. You need to just give these guys, overpay them with the term, is what I was saying. Realistically, how many years do the Penguins have left? 1, 2, 3 if we're lucky. Why give these guys 3 years at $8-9 million when you can give them 6 years at $6.1 million? And the main thing is you're saving that million, that $2 million for this upcoming year, which is all that matters. I believe the final report was that Kris Letang wanted a 5-year deal at $8 million, which I would have been okay with giving. And I believe from the Penguins side, Ron Hextall had offered him $8-9 million, but it was at 3 years. So essentially had two sides that weren't budging. I don't know who said what, but the fact that they came together, both sacrificed a little bit of what they wanted, was Kris Letang taking a few million less and Ron Hextall giving a few years more. Put all that together, and that's how you've created the perfect contract extension for Kris Letang. The fact that we're going to start next season with Kris Letang under contract at just $6.1 million is a steal. I still believe that the Penguins core has at least another year or two of elite hockey. Just look at the game today. The players that are a bit older aren't like back then where they would really slow down. Like now they're actually, keeping up. Look at Ovechkin. The guy got 50 goals last year at 35 years old. Crosby and Letang were playing some of their best hockey just last season. So I doubt entering this season at age 35, they're just going to hit a wall and completely fall off, especially with all the training and how well these guys take care of themselves nowadays. Like Kris Letang even said to the media that he wants to play till 41. And I wouldn't be surprised if throughout the entire contract, he keeps up this elite play. I mean, it's unlikely, but I would not be surprised. And for those who don't like the term, the 6 years that they gave him, you guys got to look at it this way. They weren't going to get him at $6.1 million if they offered him a 3-year deal or even a 4-year deal. Like in this situation, a guy like Kris Letang, who spent his whole career here, he's the greatest defenseman in Penguins history, statistically, and in my opinion also, because he's broken all the records, points, games played, all that stuff. He has it. It's under his name, and he's just going to be adding to it over the next 6 years. Guys like that who've given you so much, and it goes for Malkin too, they're going to give you the pay cut, but you got to kind of show them the respect back and give them something. You can't just expect them to take the pay cut, the 2-year deal, everything that you want. They'll give you something out of respect, but that same respect, you got to give it back to them. And that's why a lot of these guys get those longer term deals, because everyone knows, why would you give 34-year-old Kris Letang a 6-year deal? It makes no sense. He's going to be 41 at the end of it. You give him the 6 years so he can give you $2 to $3 million less per season, which you can really use this upcoming year, because it's pretty clear that the window is still wide open. I still believe Malkin will resign and he will take the pay cut. It's just the same thing. You got to give him the term. I doubt they're going to give him 6 years, but I think he'd be okay with a 4 or 5 year deal. And I think he'd maybe even take less than what Letang took. I still do think the Penguins are going to sign Malkin. It's just the term thing. Let me tell you why I think this will never really be a terrible contract, no matter how bad Kris Letang turns out to be. And that's if he turns bad. Number one, and this is kind of a little one, but the cap space will be going up eventually as we go on with the future. Number two, in year 4 of this contract, let's be honest, the Penguins should be a bad team. And if they're not, it's because Kris Letang is probably still performing at a really good level. But let's say he's not. Hypothetically, he's terrible in year 4, 5, and 6 or whatever, just meh, average. I'm assuming in that second half of the contract, the Penguins are going to start entering that rebuild, which they'll have plenty of cap space to afford the $6.1 million. And on top of it, this is not just some random free agent that you're throwing the money to, like a Milan Lucic type, back then, or the James Neal contracts that was terrible for the Oilers and the Flames. You know, every year there's about 5 of those contracts that you know are going to end terribly. But this is not that, because Kris Letang isn't just anybody. It's Kris Letang. And to the Penguins, he means a lot. So it's not going to be just some random bum that you have carrying around on a terrible contract. It's Kris Letang. And if you are in that rebuild, a guy like Kris Letang is amazing to have on your team, mentoring those young guys. Just picture this, you know, hypothetically, Penguins are obviously rebuilding. They're bringing in these new young kids, you know, new fresh talent coming in. Imagine they walk into that locker room and they see a 40-year-old Kris Letang, and assuming Sidney Crosby's still there, and hopefully Malkin too. Seeing those guys there, you know, with all their experience and what they mean to the franchise. A huge reason why I want these guys long term is because I'm hoping that, let's say the Penguins get a few top picks in that time. They're really bad, let's say. You know, these top picks get guided by, let's say, a Crosby, a Letang, a Malkin. They're going to be a lot better than if they just had nobody. Let's look at Sidney Crosby for a second. You know, absolute legend, and would have been a legend no matter what. But how much did having Mario Lemieux by his side in his beginning of the career actually help him? I'm sure it did wonders, just because the skill's there. But listening to this legend just speak to you, give you his advice, his opinion, because he's been through it, and he's a champion. You're listening with your ears wide open. That's so huge for a young player. And now Kris Letang is going to be on this team. So even if he's terrible at the end of the contract, he will be there and he'll be the voice for the young kids. You know, maybe we get a good prospect on the blue line, having him paired with a 40-year-old Kris Letang. That's huge in my opinion. Which is why, to conclude, this is a perfect contract, because the first 3 years, you're getting a steal of a contract because of the price. And the last 3 years, it'll start looking a bit worse, but having that presence in the locker room for those later on years, priceless. Next up, hopefully they can sign Malkin. I'll be the happiest man on the earth if they sign both Letang and Malkin to these great contracts. We just got to be patient with it. Got to trust Ron Hextall, because I'm not going to lie, right? I've had my doubts, and each doubt I've had in his time here, he's always answered it. So, he's done no wrong for me yet. But anyways, I will catch you guys in the next video. I will be making a whole draft video and, who they drafted and all that stuff sometime this weekend. So, it's the busy season. You'll be seeing a lot of me, I hope. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.